Hey, yeah, Abe, how's it going? Once again, it's your Uncle Murray. Boy, am I glad you finally got your glasses back so you can see the right letters to me again. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's been real nice of your mother to write letters and to call me on the phone for you. But boy, can she blah, 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 if you know what I mean. Oh, my days. Anyways, well, in your letter, you said that you was kind of getting interested in some of that Bible talk I've been telling you. And that you wanted to hear some more of it. You know, like how the whole kit and caboodle got started in the first place. Boy, do you got great ideas. Well, what a great place to start. I mean, why didn't I think of that? You want to tell a story? You start at the beginning, right? What'd I tell you? That I'm kind of smart, but I'm also stupid, right? Okay, so here we go. In the beginning. Da 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 da. No, there wasn't no stupid circus music. I'm just kidding. Nah, but that's what it says in the book of Genesis. That's the first book in the Bible. And here's the very first words. It says, "In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void. And darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, Let there be light. And there was light. And God saw the light that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day." Ooh, oh, that always gives me the shivers. Is that the coolest place to start a book or what? It doesn't ease you into things real slow or boring like. It's just boom, here he is, God himself, and he gets to work making stuff right away. But he don't use no tools, and he couldn't get no supplies from Home Depot or nothing like that. Nah, he just speaks. And all sorts of things just start to happen. And that's a pretty big deal, because nothing never happened before. Well, because there was never no place for nothing to happen before anyway. You see, time, space, and matter, they just all of a sudden appeared. Because the big guy decided to start thinking out loud. So all of that was on the first day. And then he makes the air and the water, and he splits them apart, and that's day 2. Then he makes the dry ground appear, and he makes all the grass and the plants and the fruit trees and the veggies and stuff like that. And that was on day number 3. Then on the 4th day, he hangs the sun and the stars out there in space, so we'll be able to at least have some kind of light 24/7. So we can see what's going on down here, and so we don't step on too many Legos in the middle of the night. Then on the 5th day, he makes all the fish and the whales and the birds and such like. Boys and girls of each of them, so they could be fruitful and do some multiplication. But now, here comes the 6th day, and that one's my favorite because that's when he made people, you see. Well, he made all the bugs and the animals first. And of course he made them guys and dolls so they could add to the population too and help fill up the earth. But then he makes the very first human being. He makes a guy named Adam, and God forms him out of the dust of the ground, you see. Yeah, seriously, he makes the first dude out of dirt. I wonder how that works. If you're made out of dirt, what happens when you take a bath? I don't know. But I guess it all worked out, because here we are, right? Anyway, well, get this. It says that God breathed the breath of life into his nostrils. Yeah, the Lord of the universe blew right into Adam's schnozola, and he comes to life. No kidding. What a way to wake up, huh? I mean, I think I might have preferred an alarm clock or a rooster or something myself, but that's just me, you know. Well, then, on the 7th day, God takes a breather. It says that he rested on the 7th day. But I don't think it was because he was all worn out or nothing. Nah, I mean, how exactly does the creator of the universe get tuckered out, huh? Nah, I think it was to give an example for us, you know. That for at least one day of the week, he wants us to take a break and recharge. Spend some time with each other and spend a day with extra special focus on him, you know. I don't think that's too much to ask. Anyway, so then God makes this great big beautiful garden called the Garden of Eden, see? And he puts all sorts of trees in it that was real pretty and had all the best tasting fruits and stuff like that. But then he puts 2 real special trees right in the middle of the garden. One of them was called the Tree of Life, and the other one was called the Tree of the Knowledge of Good and Evil. And you might be thinking, well, what's so special about them trees? And to that I say, keep your pants on. I'm getting to it, all right? Sheesh. Anyway, God takes the guy and he plops him down into the garden to take care of the place. To keep it presentable. And he says to the guy, listen, pal, this whole place is for you. I made you all these trees with a whole bunch of different yummy fruits on them, see? So you can eat as much as you want, okay? Stuff yourself to the gills till you gotta undo the button on your pants. Well, you ain't got no pants, so never mind. But, go ahead and have at it, all right? Oh, but wait. I forgot to tell you. There's this one tree I don't want you eating from. One of them trees that I put in the middle of the garden, well, one of them's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Now, you can't eat from that one, see? I know it's pretty and it looks yummy, but no munching from that tree, you hear me? Don't do it. Because if you do, you're gonna die, see? But then God says, it ain't no good for the guy to be all alone. I'm gonna make him a helper. So then, what I think happens is that God makes one more of each of the animals and the birds to parade them by Adam, and he lets him name all of them. But there wasn't none of them good enough to be a helper to him, So then God thinks to himself, hey, I know what I'll do. I'll make the kid take a nap. So I figured that he probably said something like, hey, number one, why don't you go lay down and take a little snooze? When you wake up, I got a surprise for you. So he makes Adam fall asleep, and while he's sleeping, he cuts him open and takes one of his ribs, and then he stitches them back up. Seriously. And then get a load of this. God takes the rib that he pinched from Adam, and he makes a woman out of it. A whole woman out of just one rib. And if we could figure out how to do that, backyard barbecues would get a whole lot more interesting. But I digress. Anyway, so God delivers the woman to Adam, and Adam says, oh boy, thanks a lot there, God. I really appreciate it. Well, what is it? Nah, he didn't say that. He probably knew what it was right away. Nah, what he really said was, this is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Now, this next part here, I don't want to hear no giggling, you hear me? Because it says that the two of them was naked and that they didn't have no clothes on neither. But that they wasn't ashamed of it because that was okay back then, because nobody hadn't done nothing wrong yet. But things are different now, so you can't do that. I don't want to get a letter from your mother saying that you was running down the street in your birthday suit because you heard Uncle Murray read it from the Bible. So that's why I ain't stopping the story here. So now, player number 4 comes into the picture. We got God, we got Adam, we got Adam's wife, and now in comes the bad guy, the serpent. And the serpent, well, he's Satan, you see. He's the devil, and he ain't no good. So Eve, that's Adam's wife's name, Eve, well, she was hanging out in the middle of the garden, probably doing a little bit of grocery shopping, and along comes the serpent. Now, you remember that I'm just kind of paraphrasing some of these conversations, right? That they ain't the exact words, Okay. So along comes the serpent, and he says, hey, you doll, how's it going? And Eve says, oh, pretty good, how are you? And he says, oh, I'm doing pretty good myself, thanks for asking. Say, Eve, what do you think of that tree right there behind you? And she says, oh, it sure is a nice one, yeah. And he says, well, then why don't you take a nibble? And she says, oh, no, I couldn't do that, no. And he says, well, why not? Did God say that you couldn't eat from every tree in the garden? So she says, oh, no, he said we can eat from all the trees in the garden, just not this one here in the middle of it. He says we can't eat it or even touch it or we're going to die. So the serpent says, oh, Eve, come on now. You really believe all of that? You ain't going to die. He was just saying that because he knows that your eyes are going to be open and you're going to be smart just like him and you're going to be like gods just like him. And you'll know the difference between good and evil. So I think you should take a bite. If it was me, I'd take a bite. So I think you should take a bite. Well, Eve turns around and looks at the tree and she thinks, oh, it's such a pretty tree and the fruits do look delicious. And that serpent says it'll make me real smart too. I guess one bite won't hurt. So she reaches up and she plucks off one of them fruits and she takes a big old bite. And just then, her husband happens to be walking by, and she says, "Here, honey, take a bite of this." Then she hands the fruit to Adam, and cruncho, he takes a big old bite too. But as soon as they did, the both of them, they looked down at themselves, and they said, "Holy smokes, we ain't got no clothes on. We can't let God see us like this." So they scooped up a bunch of leaves, and they sewed them together to make some clothes for themselves. But when they heard God walking through the garden and calling to them, they hid behind some trees. And God calls out to them, and he says, "Hey, where are you guys?" And Adam says, "I heard you calling, but I was hiding back here because I ain't got no clothes on." So God says, "Who told you you ain't got no clothes on? Hey, did you eat from that tree I told you not to eat from?" And this part makes me chuckle just a little bit, because what did Adam do? He points straight at his wife and he says, "The woman that you gave me, she gave me some of the fruit and I ate some." So then God turns to Eve and he says, "Eve, what did you do?" And she didn't want to take the blame neither, so she says, "The serpent, it's all his fault. He's a real smooth talker, a real silver-tongued devil. He talked me into it, so I took a bite." So then God says to the serpent, "Now listen here, you. Because you've done this, you're going to be cursed more than all them other animals. And you're going to have to wiggle around on your belly and eat dirt all your life. And I'm going to put a feud between you and the woman and between her seed and your seed. She's going to squash your head and you're going to nip at her heel." Then God says to Eve, "Now when you have kids, it's going to be even worse than it would have been before. And you don't even know about that because you haven't even had a kid yet. And you're going to desire your hubby here, and now he's going to be your boss." And then God says to Adam, "Because you listened to your old lady and you ate from that tree, the one out of all them trees I give to you, the only one I said to lay off, well, now you're going to have to work the land, You're going to have to till the soil, and thorns and thistles are going to grow in with your crops, and you're going to have to work and sweat real hard to get food out of the ground. But it's for your own good. And you're going to have to do it till you return to the ground. Because I made you from the dust of the ground, and now you're going to return to the dust of the ground." So then, God takes a look at the clothes that they made for themselves. The stupid ones that they made out of leaves. Well, God takes them off of them, and he makes them better ones made out of animal skins. And a good thing, too, if you ask me. Because I don't know what they was thinking anyway. Leaves? Clothes out of leaves? Didn't they know those things were going to dry out? And then they'd be all crunchy when they was walking around the garden. Not to mention the two of them being a couple of walking fire hazards. One night of cuddling a little too close to the fire and poof, up they'd go, the both of them. Nah, I'm just kidding. That wasn't why God gave them the new clothes. Nah, there was a better reason than that. When I learned about this, it kind of blew my mind a little bit. So they did something wrong, and they tried covering it up themselves, see? But it wasn't no good, so God had to do it himself. So he made them clothes out of animal skins. And if he used animal skins, that means that innocent blood was shed to atone for their sins, you see? And that's what Jesus does 4,000 years later, once and for all. Shedding his innocent blood to atone for the sins of all mankind. Isn't that cool? I just love that. Anyway, when God realizes that they ate from the tree and that their eyes were opened, he says, "Oh no, look at that. Man's like one of us. I gotta kick him out of here before he eats from the tree of life and lives forever." So God kicks him and his wife out of the garden to work the land. And he puts an angel with a sword at the entrance to guard the place so the two of them couldn't get back in to eat from the other tree. And you might be thinking, well, what's the big deal with the other tree? What's the big deal? Well, if Adam eats from the other tree, the tree of life, then he's going to be stuck like that forever. Then you ask, stuck like what? Well, stuck being fallen from grace. Dead in his sins forever. If you fast forward into the book of Romans, chapter 5, verse 12, it says, "Wherefore, as by one man sin entered into the world, and death by sin, and so death passed upon all men, for that all have sinned." That means that before Adam sinned, well, really it was Eve who sinned first, but we'll talk about that later too. But before Adam sinned, there was no death, and everything was hunky-dory, see? But when Adam sinned, his sin brought death into the world. And there's two kinds of death. There's physical death and spiritual death. And spiritual death is separation from God. So if I'm understanding it right, it means that if Adam had eaten from the tree of life too, then he'd be spiritually separated from God forever. And everybody else would be too. But God didn't want that to happen because he loves all of us. He didn't think up the whole universe and the whole miracle of life thing just to have us mess the whole thing up to the point that he couldn't fix it. So that's why he kicked the two of them out of the garden, so he could put his rescue plan into play, see? But there's a whole lot of Bible between the fall and when Jesus shows up. So maybe I better just stop right here for now, huh? I guess I've rambled on long enough today. What do you think? Well, what comes next after getting the boot from the garden is pretty exciting too. There's love, children, sacrifice, jealousy, rage, murder, exile. Well, so we got something to look forward to for next time. So I'll talk to you later, buddy. And remember, I miss you and I love you, pal. Bye-bye.